Hiya there folks, welcome to Boating on a Budget with me, the Tight Yorkshireman.
And me, Dawn.
Dawn, we do not appear to be in our boat.
Nope, we're in our campervan.
We are indeed, because as most people who watch us regularly will know, our programmes are mainly about rebuilding our boat, aren't they? That's not a project.
It's not a project.
It's not a project. I'll put a link in the description below to some of the videos that show the work that we've been doing on our boat. But a couple of weeks ago, we had to take the campervan in for its MOT. And how did it do?
Couldn't write it.
It failed.
Miserably.
Miserably. A couple of minor bits of mechanical work, but there's a fair bit of welding to be done. And the welding work is all under this section, which means all this lot's got to come out.
So this is our project.
Yes. I must say, when we bought the campervan sort of 18 months ago, we knew it needed a little bit of a hug, and we've done a few bits along the way, but it's now time to officially declare it a project and say, let's rip it all out.
Let's get started.
So I think you're going to go and put the kettle on.
I am.
I'll start taking out the main bits like the bed and what have you, and along the way I'll show you, because as well as doing that, we've kind of found over the time there's a few bits we've changed and things anyway, and it doesn't really work properly anyway.
Using it makes you want to change things.
For example, there's things like where I fitted the diesel heater that I'll show you. The tank for it doesn't quite fit in the cupboard that was available. So as we rebuild it, we can sort all that.
Absolutely.
But yeah, you'll go and pop the kettle on. I'll start pulling these bits out and show people roughly what the plan is. I think best place to start then is if I come round the side here and we have a little look at some of the issues that we've got. First off, this is a rock and roll bed. Basically, a rock and roll bed means that it's a seat during the day and then it drops down to become a bed at night. But because this one's a bit old and tired, we have to use these bits of wood just to keep it all in place when it's sat down as a bed. Which, incidentally, for about the last 4 months, it's only been in the bed position. We don't use it in the seat position because you can probably see with the table in place, it's perfectly fine for somebody to sit here, still use the table. We don't have to make it up into a seat. When we got the campervan, there was no toilet on board. We needed a toilet really, so we've got a little porta potty type toilet that we keep in that cupboard there. But by putting the toilet in there, it meant things like the leisure batteries, which are down there, had to move out of this cupboard into that one. And along the way, you can see at the back there's some piping. That's for the sink. And those pipes no longer reach any bottles or anything. So basically we can't use the sink as it's laid out. The final piece of the jigsaw for all these moves was just down there is our diesel heater. I fitted that beginning of December when we knew we were going to be using the campervan regularly over the winter. And again, that thing's in the wrong place. And for example, the cupboard door that should be on there, we've had to take off because we need to be able to vent the heater out into the main part of the cabin through that pipe there. So coupled with the fact that that leisure battery now doesn't actually hold a charge, we literally drive the van for a couple of hours and within an hour or two of parking up, the battery's gone flat. It's all combining to say it is time to give it all a good coat of looking at, get this welding work done and get the campervan back up to spec. as we're starting to take it apart then, you can see none of this is actual proper camper van stuff. It's all just made up of normal plywood and things. Hence the reason why we're not bothering to try and save it, are we?
No, just rip it out.
Yeah, we'll keep all things like the door handles and stuff like that. They're the sort of expensive hardware. They can all be reused. But all the boarding and things, it's been chopped about and sort of held together with...
You can make a new carcass, can't you?
Yeah. Without wishing to gloat, I can make a better one than what we're taking out, and we can make it all to fit exactly. Yeah. So I think the rest of this is now literally just
rip it out,
drag it out.
Yeah.
I think the only bit we will save though is the worktop with the sink and hob in it.
Yeah.
The worktop itself's perfectly alright and it's all fitted in there. Yeah. So if I can unscrew that, just lift that off as one piece. As we rebuild it, we can probably just reuse that. So other than that,
already cut out then, isn't it?
Yeah. Let's get rid of the rest.
Yeah.
And on camera, this might look really nice and expensive trim.
Oh, it is.
It's not. It's cheap, horrible, nasty plastic stuff. For the bin. This job's equally being made twice as hard by the fact that pretty much all my tools are down on the boat.
Yes, they are.
And the boat is currently 2 hour drive away. So I've got my old drill and a few old bits of screwdrivers and things.
Bit of brute force,
yes.
Might have to come into.
To be fair, my little Bosch drill that I've got a little Bosch XO drill that charges up with a USB through the 12 volt. And it's literally about that big. It's got plenty of power for doing this sort of stuff. Would have been ideal for getting into all these corners and stuff, but will not complain. Well, not too much anyway. I think one thing we have failed to mention so far is we've not been on the boat for a couple of weeks, in the camper van for a couple of weeks. We've been out on the boat and it seems that we've had a visit from Mickey.
Oh yes.
Mickey Mouse. Fortunately it is a mouse, not
a throw a box of quality streaks.
But yeah, so all the insides and things are all full of the remnants of a visit from Mickey. So that's just added to the fun of clearing it all out.
But while we've got it out, at least we can clear it out.
Indeed. And so far, I've not actually found Mickey, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I think he just came for Christmas, had a good time and went home drunk and drunk on chocolate.
Left us with the carnage. For now I'll just coil this up and put it under there. It's the split charge relay that charges the leisure battery up from the main battery whilst ever the engine's running. I've just been underneath, unbolted the diesel heater from outside, so that should now just lift out the way. With the diesel heater out the way, we can see the first signs of what we've got to deal with. Obviously these two holes are the ones that I put in to fit the diesel heater, but that is just a hole that's developed through the floor over time with rust. And looking from underneath the camper van, you can see there's more of those, as well as obviously the things that have been picked up on for the MOT, which I think is largely in this section. So we need to get this floor up and then have a look and see exactly what we're dealing with. I can see there's a few screws holding this wood down from here, but there's also, I spotted as I was taking the bed out, these 4 nuts and bolts there. The spare wheel's under here as well, so I'm going to have to drop the spare wheel out of the way and then see whether I need to get up on the ramps or whether I can get to undo those nuts and bolts, see what they were actually holding in place. There's obvious signs that this van's had quite a bit of work on it in the past. This should be held on with 4 screws. It's only actually held on with 2, and neither of those were in properly in the first place. I thought I was going to have to get underneath the van and unbolt these. Clearly they weren't holding anything down anyway. I can see lots of screws then holding this board down. We'll get them out and see whether the board's actually stuck in place or just screwed down. Fingers crossed it's just screwed in place. There's 2 sections of the floor that have got fiberglass. Obviously that's not a good sign, because generally that means it's a bodged repair. So the thing for it is, let's get it up and see what it reveals. Again, I'm not too unhappy with that. Bit of loose rust, bit of an hole that needs filling. It would seem that was a bit of an overkill to put all that fiberglass in for that. Fingers crossed, that's the same. And straight away I can tell you it's not the same, because my blunt chisel has just gone straight through the floor. Fiberglass also goes all the way up this wheel arch, so I'm thinking we're going to find we need to repair / replace this section. That's a nice template to use anyway. Again, in actual fact, looking at the state of the fiberglass that was on there, it's probably not as bad as I thought when I started lifting that, but it will still want that section cutting out and replacing with a repair panel. Let's get this all swept up and we can have a proper look at the floor and assess what's the next stage, eh, Dawn?
It's not as bad as what we thought, really, is it?
No. As I've started to get the chisel into here, you can see it's starting to open up a considerable hole. So this area is definitely all going to need chopping out and replacing. I'm not sure if I can get a repair panel for that or whether we're going to have to manufacture something. I'm going to need to get it up on the ramps, have a good look underneath, get a look at the different areas that are going to need repairing, then get on the internet and see what panels I can order and what bits we're going to have to try and make. At the minute, that corner is just held on with
the screw.
Not quite. That bit was just held on with the seam sealer, which is what they put over the joints where they weld two pieces together. They put seam sealer on, and that's basically all that was holding that corner of the floor in place. You're doing a good job of taking that one screw out, Dawn.
I've just undone 100 screws out here.
Yeah. As I've been doing this, Dawn's just been taking apart all the old cabinets, getting all the hinges and things like that off them that we are going to reuse at a later date. Are you any good at welding?
No, I can't get that screw out either.
Alright. It's alright, so we're going to be getting the grinder out at some stage so we can chop it off with the grinder. But yes, I think we're starting to get to the nitty gritty of what it failed its MOT on. Well, with an hour up on the ramps, time to get underneath and see what horrors we discover from there. I think to sum up then, we can certainly say that there's been some positives and some negatives of what we've found as we've started to strip out and start Campervan project. When we look inside the van, we've obviously found the bits of rust along the floor, and obviously some of them, the more you prod, the more you poke, the more it becomes a hole. Those localised areas aren't too bad, I'm sure we can deal with those. And as we found, there's odd bits like that that are going to be quite major. And the one bit we've not shown so far, if we come around this way, is this step and sill are quite bad. When we look at this, if we pull the rubber trim off, you can see all this lip is just made up of fiberglass. So that's going to need some fairly substantial work doing to it. That's not actually what it's failed the MOT on, but while we're doing, it might as well be done. And that's part of the decision I've now got to make. I'm not by any means a welder. I can sort of join two bits of metal together with a welder, but I'm not a welder. So do I either try and perfect my skills and do it myself, or is there anybody out there who wants a campervan project to weld up? I'm going to be having a look, see how much the panels are, see where I can get panels from, see what would have to be manufactured rather than bought. So it's time to go away, do some scratchy head and see where we go with stage 2 of the campervan project.